Hello, son. How's schooling so far? Son, you look problematic.
Daddy,
What's wrong?
I'm having a hard time understanding our lesson. Please,
I'm
help
sorry
me.
to hear that, son. But don't worry. I have a solution for that.
Really? What is it, Daddy?
Subscribe Steve Sphere's vlog and follow Balanti High School video lessons.
Yay! I will.
Okay, son. Enjoy watching the video. Hello there, grade 7 students! It's nice to see you again! It's me, your virtual English teacher. I am Sir Stephen, but you can call me Sir Steve or Sir Stiff. How are you? Were you able to answer and finish all the exercises and activities in your learning activity sheet? Who helped you do it? Oh, that's good to know. By the way, were you able to watch my video lesson on that topic? Uh-huh. I hope you are watching all my video lessons because they can help you understand more and clearer our discussion every week. For today, I will discuss the third lesson for the first quarter. Are you ready to have our lesson now? I can't hear you. Are you ready to have our lesson now? Well then, let's begin. Alright, let us start our lesson for this week. English 7, Quarter 1, Week 3. For this week, our learning competency is use the passive and active voice meaningfully in varied contexts. For this week, the important terms we have to understand are passive and active voice. In order for us to easily grasp and understand this week's lesson, let us recall first the different tenses of verbs. So we have here the verb tense chart. Let us remember that there are different tenses of verbs. So when we say tense, it talks about the time when an action is being done, or when it was done. So we have what we call simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. Each of these verb tense has its different forms. There are past, present, and future form. You have to remember the different forms of these verbs because you will be using them later as we discuss active and passive voice. For simple tense, of course, for past, this is the verb. So the verb may be either a regular or an irregular verb. So a regular verb just needs ed or d at its end, while an irregular verb needs to change its spelling. I walked to the store. So walked here is our past tense. For the present tense, we use the base form of the verb. The form of the verb depends upon the number of the subject. If the subject is singular, of course, the verb uses letter S. If the subject is plural, the verb does not take an S form, except for pronouns I and you. I walked to the store. Walk is our present tense of the verb. For the future tense, I will walk to the store. For the future tense, we use the form will or shall plus the base form of the verb. Example, will walk. Remember, if we use will and shall, the verb must be in its form. No letter S, not in its past tense. That is our simple tense. Each of these tense has its own purpose. For the past tense, it talks about past action. For present tense, either it talks about present action or it states fact and so on. For future tense, it tells something about in the future, what will be done in the future. Now moving forward, we have the progressive form of the verb. Progressive or continuous form. Progressive takes the ing form, meaning to say the main verb must end in ing. Example, for the past tense, I was walking to the store. The subject is I, that is why we use the linking verb was, and then succeeded by the verb walk plus ing. I was walking. Past progressive tense. For the present progressive tense, I am walking to the store. So since the linking verb that must be used is present tense, so we use am instead of was and instead of is, because the subject is I. You don't say I is. So we would say I am. I am what? Walking to the store. ing form. For the future tense, I will be walking to the store. So we take the will plus the progressive form of the verb. So I will be walking to the store. So when we say progressive, the action is continuously done. That's why it's progressive. Next is the perfect tense. This one is a little difficult. Here, it requires you to memorize the different forms of the verb. Each verb has its perfect tense. Example, fly, flew, flown. Flew is the simple past, while flown is its perfect form or past perfect form. Sorry for this. So example, I had walked to the store. For the perfect tense, we always use the auxiliary verbs had, have, or will have. Okay? Had is for past, have or has for present, depending upon the number of the subject, and then shall have or will have plus past participle for the future perfect. I had walked. Okay, this is the form. Had plus past participle. Always, the past perfect of the main verb must be followed. So, walked is the past perfect form. And then for the present, since I is a subject, it's one of the excluded subjects, so we don't use has, we use have. So, I have walked. I have walked to the store. For the form of the future perfect, I will have walked to the store. Again, these tenses of verb follow certain purposes. So I won't discuss yet what it means. I am just recalling you. I'm just helping you recall the different forms because you need to remember them for later's main discussion. For the perfect progressive, so since it's progressive still, we will use the perfect form of the verb, but we will use the ing form. So had still used for past, has or have for present, future is will have or shall have. The only difference is we will use been plus continuous or progressive form of the verb. Example, I had been working to the store. That's for the past. Okay? For the present, I have been walking to the store. And for the future, I will have been walking to the store. So these are the different forms of the verb you have to remember because you will be using them later on. So, let us proceed now to our main discussion. Use active and passive voice meaningfully in varied contexts. So we will have different situations wherein we have to apply the active and passive voice. Now it says here, The use of active and passive voice will vary on the ideas that you are trying to convey. So the meaning depends, the use of the active and passive voice depends on the meaning we want to convey in our sentences. Active voice is sometimes better selection than passive voice. However, there are instances whether passive voice can be more suitable and sophisticated and desirable to use. So just like what I said, it depends upon the meaning you want to convey. You may use them together depending on the framework and topic of your sentences and the piece of manuscript you are writing. In other words, active and passive voices have appropriate uses and locations, and using them properly and correctly will make your writing more effective and more efficient. So you must know how to play with active and passive voice. Now, according to Morato 2002, when we say voice, isn't it tense talks about time? Now, voice is a feature of a verb. So it's also a feature of the verb, wherein it indicates whether the subject of the sentence is the doer or the receiver of the action. So I repeat, voice is a feature of the verb which helps us identify whether the subject is the doer or the receiver of the action. These two special forms of verbs are active voice and passive voice respectively. So when it's active voice, it says here, it's the normal voice. What's the normal voice? This is the voice that we use most of the time. In the active voice, the object receives the action of the verb. Or simply, the subject is the doer of the action. Okay? For the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. The one being talked about is the one doing the action. What is the form? Doer of the action or subject plus verb plus the object or the receiver of the action. We have here examples. The Department of Education employs numerous nurses. So who is being talked about? It's the Department of Health. This is the subject. So what does the Department of Health do? Or what is it doing? It employs. So the Department of Education employs who? Who receives the action? They employ numerous nurses. So this is the ordinary form of our sentences. So it's the normal form. So this is what we call active voice. The subject is the doer of the action. While on the other hand, when we say passive voice, okay, the subject is the receiver of the action. So, it says here, the subject receives the action of the verb. The receiver of the action comes before the verb. It is the subject of the sentence. It's also by Morato 2002. Our form is receiver of action plus the word plus the be verbs am, is, was, where, are, plus past participle of the verb. Okay. When we say past participle, the ones we use in the perfect tense. Okay, and then plus the preposition by, and then doer of the action. So this must be remembered. This is our form. Example. A while back, sentence, the Department of Education employs numerous nurses. Sentence, this one, the subject is the Department of Health and it does the action. On the other hand, if we convert it to a passive voice, it becomes like this. Numerous nurses are employed by the Department of Health. So we start with the receiver of the action, numerous nurses, and then plus the be verb, since it's plural and employees is in its present form, then we use are. Okay, take note of that. When we convert the verbs from active to passive voice, let us be keen, let's be observant of the tense of the verb. This will help us what be verb shall use for the passive voice. So So are employed, past participle, and then by, and then the subject, the doer of the action, the Department of Health. Okay, let's have another example. Let me erase this. Okay. So let's have the second example. COVID-19 changed the lives of many Filipinos. COVID-19 is the subject and it does the action of changing. Who changed? COVID-19. Okay. Change what? Receiver of the action, the lives of many Filipinos. So when we convert it, this will be our subject, the lives of many Filipinos. And then take note of the tense. It is in its past form. So we will use the past form of the verb, the be verb. So it's either was or were, depending on the subject, COVID-19. No. In this sentence, this is the subject. But in this sentence, the subject will be lives of many Filipinos. So plural. The lives of many Filipinos, plural past, were changed by subject, a while back, COVID-19. Okay? You get it? I hope so. I hope I am not magulo in discussing. Let us continue. The object of the active verb becomes the subject of a passive verb. So they interchange position. The active voice, it's the subject. When you convert it to its passive voice, it becomes the object, and vice versa. Example. During this pandemic time, our province needs dedicated and hardworking Tarlaqueños. So doer is our province. Their action is they're needing what? Dedicated and hardworking Tarlaqueños. So when we transform it into passive voice, this becomes the subject, dedicated and hardworking Tarlaqueños, and then needs present form, so it's either is, am, or are. Since Tarlaqueños plural, so we will use are. Are and then past participle form, are needed, and then by our province during this pandemic time. Clear? Okay, I hope. Here are the different forms of active and passive voice. Okay?